It's going into a recession. Now, a lot of people have said that, yeah, we're going to have a recession as if it's no big deal, but they're expecting a mild recession. I see a much more severe recession based on a lot of factors, some of which we've spoken about. So the global economy is in bad shape.
Jim Rickards, a prominent figure in the world of finance, boldly predicts that the forthcoming economic turmoil will surpass the severity of the 2008 crash. There are many alarming signs in the banking sector, and institutions like Signature Bank, Silicon Valley Bank, and First Republic Bank are facing dramatic declines, raising questions about the stability of the financial system. Jim Rickards emphasizes that the next crisis could be catastrophic because of the enormous debt in the system. The severity of the bailouts needed might overwhelm central banks, and finding the necessary funds will be a monumental challenge. Furthermore, the end of American dominance and the fate of the US dollar hang in the balance. Signs suggest that the dollar's collapse could lead to a return to the gold standard, causing a surge in demand for gold and potentially driving its price to unprecedented heights. Let's dive into Jim Rickards' forecast of the impending financial crisis and why you should be cautious with your money. First, let's take a trip back in time to the Great Depression of 1929. This was a massive financial crisis that left a significant mark on the world. It was a time when the stock market crashed, unemployment soared, and countless people lost their life savings. Fast forward to 2008, and we faced another massive economic crisis. The collapse of housing prices, the bankruptcy of major financial institutions, and a global recession were all part of this sobering experience. One of the recurring themes in these crises is the belief in the invincibility of the economic system. People tend to become complacent, thinking that economic growth will continue indefinitely. But as Jim Rickards points out, reality always wins. We can't ignore the warning signs. Deregulation is another key factor. Before the 2008 crisis, there was a push for minimal regulations, giving financial institutions unprecedented freedom. This led to relaxed lending standards and a housing bubble. When the bubble burst, it sent shockwaves through the global economy, affecting millions of individuals. The impact of these financial crises on individuals and the global economy cannot be overstated. People lost their jobs, homes, and savings. Major banks teetered on the edge of collapse, requiring massive government bailouts to prevent a total global economic meltdown. The consequences rippled through various sectors, and it took years for the global economy to recover. Back in 2008, we witnessed a financial crisis that sent shockwaves around the world. Banks were crumbling, housing prices plummeted, and many people lost their jobs and investments. But what's important to note is that the aftermath of the 2008 crisis has had lasting effects. The economy didn't fully recover, and the financial system is still grappling with the consequences. Then came the COVID-19 pandemic, which hit us just over a decade later. The economic fallout from the pandemic has been widespread. Businesses closed, people got laid off, and many countries are still struggling to fully recover. Rickards is telling us that these recent events might not be isolated incidents, but rather part of a larger economic storm brewing. Now let's talk about Russia's intervention in Ukraine. You might wonder, how does this affect the global economy? Well, it's all about essential commodities. Ukraine and Russia are major suppliers of food and energy products, and their conflict has driven up prices. This in turn affects the cost of living for people around the world. Rickards is pointing out how geopolitical events can have a direct impact on our wallets. Speaking of the cost of living, it's been on the rise. Essential commodity prices and the cost of living have been on the rise. We're talking about things like food and energy, stuff we all need. The cost of these necessities is going up, and that's putting a strain on many households. So when you go to the grocery store or fill up your gas tank, you're likely feeling the pinch. Jim Rickards sees this as a worrying sign because when the essentials become more expensive, it affects our overall financial well-being. Recent bank collapses have sent shockwaves through the financial world, and they're significant warning signs. When notable institutions like Signature Bank, Silicon Valley Bank, and First Republic Bank experience dramatic declines, it's a clear signal that all is not well in the financial sector. Why is that a concern? Well, during the 2008 financial crisis, the collapse of major banks like Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns sent shockwaves across the globe, and governments had to step in with massive bailouts to prevent a total meltdown. Now let's talk about debt. Excessive debt played a major role in the 2008 crisis, and it's even more concerning today. Rickards highlights the fact that since 2008, debt levels have skyrocketed. So if we're hit by another crisis, the impact could be much more severe because there's so much debt in the system. While some folks might be focusing on the stability of the housing market, Jim Rickards advises us to look at the commercial real estate sector. With the rise of remote working, office property prices are declining, leading to more vacancies. This could spell trouble because property owners may default, and financial institutions could be left holding worthless properties as collateral, mirroring the 2008 crisis. If that happens, it could set off a domino effect, impacting other industries and leading to a financial panic. While we talk about the scale of necessary bailouts in a major economic crisis, it's staggering. We're taking trillions upon trillions of dollars. Jim Rickards is right on the money when he points out that central banks might not have the resources to deal with such a colossal crisis. The 2008 bailout was huge, but the next one could make it look like small change. Sourcing funds for these bailouts is a monumental challenge. Some might say, hey, why not turn to international organizations like the IMF? Well, it's not that simple. Jim Rickards is pessimistic about this option due to the protracted approval process. Moreover, it's not a straightforward process, as at least 85% of member states must agree to any bailout. It's doubtful that all members, especially countries in the BRICS group, would readily support bailing out a major player like the Federal Reserve. The potential impact on the global financial system is a crucial point. If central banks can't come to the rescue and stabilize the situation, it can have far-reaching consequences. Jim Rickards suggests that the next crisis could become the straw that breaks the camel's back for the global financial system. In other words, the entire system that we rely on for our everyday economic activities could be in jeopardy. This could lead to a financial domino effect, with negative consequences for all of us. Jim Rickards paints a stark picture of what could happen if the next financial crisis hits hard. The breakdown of social order and lawlessness. When people can't access their funds and financial systems crumble, it's a recipe for chaos. We've seen glimpses of such lawlessness in places like Lebanon, where people had to resort to breaking into banks to retrieve their money. It's not hard to imagine that in such a chaotic environment, citizens might take to the streets, demanding the resignation of their leaders. In a world where traditional currencies might be rendered worthless, people could resort to the rise of black markets and barter trade. It's like a return to the old days when goods and services were exchanged directly, without relying on money. This is an adaptation to economic uncertainty, but it can also lead to a shadow economy that operates outside the usual legal and tax systems. Jim Rickards warns that the potential collapse of civilization as we know it is not out of the question. If people can't access their money, if there's a severe breakdown in social order, and if essential commodities become scarce, it can create a volatile environment. Opportunistic looters and vigilants could take advantage of the situation, and citizens may take to the streets, demanding change. This kind of upheaval can have far-reaching consequences for the fabric of society. American dominance in global affairs might be on the decline. Historically, the United States have played a leading role in shaping the world's economic and political landscape. However, Jim Rickards suggests that this era of American dominance could be drawing to a close. The 2008 financial crisis exposed vulnerabilities in the US economic system, and the subsequent challenges, including the COVID-19 pandemic, have put further strain on American leadership. With the potential decline of American dominance, there's talk of a return to the gold standard. This is significant because it could trigger a surge in demand for gold, which is a finite and precious resource. Jim Rickards believes that the price of gold could skyrocket, reaching astonishing levels like $110,000 per ounce. The idea of a return to the gold standard signifies a loss of faith in traditional currencies and a move towards a more stable and universally accepted form of wealth preservation. One of the factors contributing to the potential decline of American dominance is the rise of the BRICS coalition. This group, which includes countries like Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, has been steadily growing. These nations are looking to establish an alternative financial system, one that isn't as reliant on the US dollar. Jim Rickards suggests that the recent expansion of BRICS, including Iran's participation, completes what he terms the axis of gold. These countries have been accumulating substantial reserves of gold, setting the stage for a significant shift in the global financial landscape. So how would this new financial system work? Jim Rickards suggests that gold and blockchain technology could play a vital role. Gold could serve as the standard currency, backed by blockchain to ensure transparency and security. This combination could revolutionize the way international transactions are conducted. It's a potential game changer that could challenge the existing financial institutions and systems. If you enjoyed this video guys, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video and watch this one as well.